Hey, what's up? It's Matt Plapp. We're back with another Restaurant Expert Roundup. Today we're with Kyle Inserra. Kyle, what's going on?
How are you? Thanks for having me, Matt.
You're welcome. I'm doing great. So I guess tell the audience a little bit about who you are, your background, all that good stuff.
So I'm a restaurant industry veteran. I've been in the business for about 20 years. But right now I work at Sabre Advisors as part of the emerging restaurant group team and helping them find sites across the country. So I help restaurants find new locations, essentially.
Yeah, when I saw the Sabre, I don't know if you ever watch The Office with Michael Scott, the TV show.
Yeah.
Where they thought it was Sabre.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, we get that joke a lot.
When I saw that on your bio, I'm like, oh my gosh, he works for Sabre.
That was a joke. Yeah, no. Yep, Sabre. That's the one. I was, prior to this, I was at CBRE doing the same job, but I'm very happy to be at Sabre now.
Cool. And you've got a deep history in the restaurant world. I remember one of your first podcasts, you talked about how you had a restaurant in, was it Westchester, Connecticut, right?
Yeah, I had my first restaurant was here in Westchester County, New York, just north of the city. And then I sold that in 2016. And now I have another restaurant also in Westchester County that also keeps me busy aside from my real estate work.
So how did you get in the restaurant business? What got you there?
Man, it was like 8th or 9th grade. I grew up on Long Island, and a bunch of my buddies just like, they started having like money. And I'm like, where are you guys getting this money? And they had just started working as busboys at a new brewery on Long Island, like a brewery restaurant. And I was like, well, I want to work there. And they were telling all these great stories and all this like fun stuff. And that was it. They gave me a job as a dishwasher, and I was off and running. For some reason, that appealed to me. I don't know why.
And that led to the path of restaurant ownership and then consulting for the last 5-6 years or something like that.
Yeah, I mean it's been a long road for sure. I say like a lot of my consulting stuff or the advice and like content is built around things that I've experienced and probably done wrong, and I just don't want to see anybody do that for themselves. So I learned a lot by doing it the hard way for sure.
Yeah, and I commonly tell people I've been consulting for a while, and I say, hey, everything I'm consulting on it because I've done it right a million times. It's because I did it wrong enough to learn.
Yeah, I know. I can't help myself. It's always that way. I want to, dive in first and then, look at the manual later.
Yeah. So tell me about the podcast. What got you started on that? It's the National Restaurant Owners Podcast, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you can relate. Like this business it can be so lonely, right? Like you start a business, you start a restaurant, and then you don't have, you can't like walk down the hall and ask somebody in the office down there, like, hey, what should I do? Have you ever seen this before? You're left with the people who are around you. You're left with, Google or other podcasts. And, I really felt like that experience, I couldn't have been the only one, right? Like there has to be other people out there. And just to put a platform, because especially now, like some restaurants could be just one piece of information, one contact away from, saving themselves from having to close. So the idea was to do that, was to make it like a sounding board and to kind of create a back and forth with the restaurant community in this country, independent restaurant owners, to have them, ask questions and them answered through the show.
Yeah, and I can relate to that. I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs are lonely, and a lot of us get so deep in our business, we don't go outside of it to seek advice. And I saw that back during the first round of the PPP loans back in March, April, May, that people's advice was in these groups on Facebook and LinkedIn. It's like they didn't have a community around them that they could ask that. And I was like, wow, how do you not know somebody? But I guess a lot of people are just stuck inside their four walls and don't get out there.
Yeah, and it's like, that PPP is a good example, right? Like, no one would help you because they're dealing with their own. They're like, I don't know how to do it either, like, so there's just community, and it's, not that it's, I get it, right? I'm not like I was going to say it's a shame, but it's like, everyone's got their own stuff to deal with, and, you got to sometimes handle it on your own, but you don't have all the answers. So the idea was to really share that experience through like, people who are kind of stuck in their restaurant, tied to their business or tied to the stove, and they want to do more. They're hoping to do more, but like they don't know how to. They don't have the right bookkeeper. They don't have the right manager. They don't have the right menu. Whatever it is, well, let's talk it out. Like so that was the goal there.
Okay. So I got a question. So do you deal in a lot of franchises, or do you deal with more independents?
I definitely deal with independents more.
Okay.
So like my ideal client or that I tend to deal with, have anywhere between 1 to 5 locations.
Okay.
And they're looking to help them address those pain points that help them. I was just talking to somebody about this. Help them from being a restaurant owner to being a restaurant entrepreneur.
Okay.
Like, how can you run a chain of restaurants or a group of restaurants? Like, how do you bring people on board? How do you, systemize everything so that you don't have to be the one who's there all the time?
Okay. Yeah, I remember it was an episode, I think I wrote episode 48, Dan Rowe, you had on there about the future of franchising. Yeah. What about when you look at the future of franchising, you look at independence, what do you think is a stronger path forward right now post the pandemic? Or do you think it's a situational based on the person?
I think the latter is true. I think there's so many people, and that was my question to Dan actually in the show was, people who get involved in, Dan is a franchisee himself, right? Like, so he's not a restaurant operator. Like, he likes food, but he doesn't probably want to be there on a Saturday night, like when the grease trap backs up or the bartender calls out, and that's cool. That's great. And I know there are a lot of restaurants that want to be franchises, but you can see the benefits of both. Somebody like Dan or somebody who's looking to step into something that's already established and has a proven track record, that's a lot of value to that. For sure, it's a lot more challenging to start with your own, notepad and take it to the bank, try to get some money and hire a staff. It's a different animal, but there are people who succeed in both, obviously.
So with regards to the pandemic, you obviously, are seeing a lot of open real estate. I'm guessing you're probably helping a lot of restaurants that are probably that 2, 3, 4 location. Like, oh, we might be able to go to 6 to 10 because there's a lot of real estate open right now. How are you judging the right move or the wrong move? Because 5 years ago, if a place was empty and it was 5 restaurants, it was like, it's a bad location. Now there's a lot of places that are probably decent locations, just bad concepts, wrong time of the year.
Yeah, it is, there's a lot going on there, but my approach is always the same, right? So like if it's a homework, if you thought of it like, and Dan touched on this in that conversation that we had, if you think of finding a restaurant location like a homework assignment, right? So find the best location for the restaurant in this town based on this information. And it becomes like a game. Like I'm not so much concerned if it was a restaurant, if it wasn't a restaurant. If our demographic is there, can we turn that camera store into a restaurant? What's the zoning like? Can we punch through the roof here? Because this is all our data, right? It's all dependent on data is showing that this is where our people are. So while obviously looking at signs and working with other brokers in the community is a huge piece of what we do, at the same time, turning over those stones, particularly in what's going on here, can present some opportunities where, like a landlord might not have ever considered a restaurant, but now he's like, hey, you know what? Maybe I should do that. And it sounds weird, but I think that's a process that works.
Yeah, I've also talked to a few people who have altered the locations they're in or gotten secondary locations that weren't available from landlords because they didn't want a restaurant there. They didn't want it on the end cap. And it's like, hey, I have to have a drive-through now. Like, this is what 2021, 22 looks like. And the one guy was telling me, he's like, my landlord, it was a non-negotiable with the city, with the landlord and everything. And all of a sudden now the drive-through's installed. It was like, hey, we're going to help you guys out. So opportunity came about as well.
Yeah. And I think, revisiting some of those sites that you haven't seen that you either passed on because it was too expensive or because of conversations like you're referring to where some things weren't an option are worth it. If you think that the site's still of value. It's unfortunate that so many restaurants are closing. I always say, like, hopefully, I genuinely hope that like that person who's closing, it turns out to be a real pivotal point. And they move on to something better. Like maybe they weren't meant to be in the restaurant business and whatever the case may be. And this is a springboard to something else. But the upside is that for good operators, you may step into something that was built out a year, 2 years, 6 months ago that you can kind of just, put some TVs up, paint, rearrange the kitchen a little bit, and be up and running. So definitely a lot of opportunity, and it's going to be interesting to see how this really plays out once the winter's over here in the Northeast for sure.
Yeah, you got a huge snowstorm up there right now, don't you?
Oh my God! I can't even see out my window. It's insane. We haven't had this much snow in a long time, so it just kind of fits with everything else that's going on here.
Yeah, one of my employees lives in Philly, and we were talking this morning. He's like, we got 8 inches last night. We got 10 more coming today or something like that. And I'm like, what? Like,
yeah,
we got a dusting here in Cincinnati, and the whole world thought it was going to.
It sounds. It's like it was snowing last night, snowing this morning, and then there's like 10 inches of snow outside, and somebody just said, well, the real snow is going to start at 3. And I'm like, what the hell has this been the whole time? We're getting crushed out here. So yeah, not good. They're not good for deliveries today either. So keep that in mind too. Restaurants are like, oh, well, you can deliver. There are no deliveries happening today. I can tell you that. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Snowmobile.
Yeah, that would be great. I don't doubt somebody might be out there doing that. That'd be pretty cool, actually.
I placed an Uber order on Friday here at our office in downtown Cincinnati, and the app is the first I had ever seen it. It said she was coming on a bike, and it's like 15 degrees, and I'm like, on a bike? This lady's insane just for a sub sandwich. And so I'm like outside in anticipation, waiting for a bike, and she pulls up in a car. She's like, no, it's too cold today. I'm like, oh.
She's just trying to get for the bigger tip.
Yeah, I guess maybe some compassion. I don't know.
Exactly.
So as you look at this year, what's one of the biggest opportunities you see for restaurateurs? Is it adding additional locations that are already built out that are maybe cheaper than they were, or is there something else out there?
My genuine hope is that restaurants took this time, because that was the one thing that, if you kind of stripped away everything else, we're not, obviously not making money because we can't have occupancy, a lot of other restrictions of what you can and can't do, is to have taken the time to really assess your business and say, where are we at? What is this pandemic teaching us? What opportunities does it present us? What do we need to change? And hopefully learn that this stuff that the pandemic has brought to light, a lot of it's going to stick around. Your importance on your digital presence, you're providing an experience outside the 4 walls of your restaurant. And certainly, there's definitely opportunity out there for people who are in this for the long haul. There are deals being made in the city at prices that haven't been seen in a long time. So if you're playing the long game, it's tough to think that there's going to be an opportunity like this again.
Cool. Well, I appreciate your time. What's the best way to people to reach out to you? I looked on here, like on LinkedIn below, you got the company, the National Restaurant Podcast. A little bit long, so I've got your regular LinkedIn.
There we go.
Find you on LinkedIn. Is that the easiest way to connect with you?
That's the best way for sure. Yeah, any kind of Instagram, LinkedIn is the best way. Absolutely.
Okay. Any closing words, or maybe I guess who's the ideal company that you'd like to help? Who's the person that you deal with the most, you have the most success with?
Oh man. You know what? I really have a passion for trying to help somebody who has a great product, right? Like we can all think of this restaurant that has like a tremendous product, and we've probably had a conversation with them, even if you don't do what I do, of saying, oh, you should open up another location. And they're just stuck in this hamster wheel of not being able to get out of it and open new locations, and helping them realize that, they have the potential to actually be somebody to run a restaurant group if they just let go of the recipe or let the leash out on some of the managerial stuff. My passion is to work with those concepts who have a great product and are looking for that kind of help.
Cool. Well, hey, you guys know where to reach him. Get him on LinkedIn, IG, Facebook. Appreciate your time, and good luck shoveling snow up there in the Northeast.
God, my God, yeah. I'm waiting until it's done snowing, which I don't know if that's a great idea either, but we'll figure it out.
You might not ever make it out. Well, cool. Have a good rest of your day.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Take care. Bye-bye.